Black woman. Beautiful, powerful, resilient female of African descent with skin kissed by the sun. Conversation. A talk, especially an informal one between two or more people in which news and ideas are exchanged. We love being Black women. Black women are ambitious. Black women are confident. Black women are diligent. We are tenacious. We walk out of our houses put together. We are many shades and personalities of fabulous. But we as Black women don't talk about our dilemmas, current events, and what's going on every day that affects us. So we created this podcast as a way to laugh together, cry together, and have an open conversation about life as Black women.
Oh, that's deep. Black Women Conversations.
Hey, Janine.
Hey, Nicole.
How you been doing?
Girl, things are amazing. Actually, you know what? I'm actually getting used to being home now, right? But I think I'm running out of things to watch. Like, I feel like I've been through Netflix like 15 times already. I'm watching reruns of like Selling Sunset or something. I don't know. I'm losing it, I feel like. But I'm enjoying being home, and I've picked up a few extra books and things like that. So, you know.
Well, I have joined, I'm not at home. Obviously, I'm in COVID land every day, going to the hospital or going to clinic. But, you know, Janine, you're just a boss even from home. So you just do a whole bunch of stuff and you're multitasking all the time. I am definitely in clinic and in the hospital. But even with me still working, you still realize how much time you have, right? Which is why we can do this podcast and why I can work on some other things. So, to me, it's been amazing to actually have free time to actually develop your thoughts and develop some goals and, you know, catch up with family that I would not have caught up with via Zoom, or you have these FaceTime parties with your family, these Zoom birthday parties and stuff like that. So I think it's cool because some of the family members I really want to see, like, I mean, not saying I don't want to see the rest of my family, but like, yes, I want to see my grandmother in person, but some people like cousins and like friends and, you know, you just haven't talked to them in a while, and it almost like gives you a time to catch up with them virtually and reconnect. So I think that that's amazing that the pandemic has that little positive blink of light that you have caught up with family members and you can plan your life, you know, trying to figure out what you want to do after the pandemic. And to me, it's let me really prioritize some things. Like some people that I may not have talked to in a while, like maybe I really don't need to be talking to you.
Oh no, Nicole, we're losing friends.
I think that when you are when it's a crucial time, I think that you know who your friends are and who they aren't. And you try to figure out like, how did you even connect with those people? So if you connected with them based on something very superficial and now you're in a pandemic and you can't see them, you may not talk to them.
Very much so. I'm all for shifting of friends. And it's, you know, it's nothing against people specifically. It's just, you know, people change. We grow. Some people choose to stay in the same places that they are, and you prioritize. But then you also get to reconnect with friends like we did.
Yay!
Okay, girl. So I have intentionally not talked to you about this because I was saving it for today. So everything on my timeline, aside from like, you know, the basics of news, everything on my timeline is August, Jada, Will, and Entanglement. And normally at this point of the year, Will Smith is making headlines for some blockbuster summer film, right? And this year, it's very different. And not just because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but because this is the first time that we've ever had an inside look to the Smith household, almost. I mean, you know, we've gotten a little bit of teaser here and there from some red table talks, but whew, this has gotten blown wide open. So for those of you who don't know, and for my own entertainment, I'm going to refresh our memories on what's happening with August Alsina, and Jada Pinket Smith and Will Smith and Entanglement. And normally we don't really get into, you know, social media kind of gossip or banter, but this isn't gossip anymore because all parties have spoken. So it's fair game. So August Alsina recently put out an album. And for those of you who don't know, August Alsina is a 27-year-old rapper, singer. Well, he's not really a rapper. He's a singer, songwriter from New Orleans, Louisiana. Shout out to you, Nicole and Xavier. Okay, there we go. Side note, Nicole and I met at Xavier University in Louisiana. So that's why we made that reference. So August Alsina put out this album, and with the album came a 5-part documentary. And in this 5-part documentary in this album, he kind of alluded to his relationship, which had previously been speculated by the media, with Jada Pinket Smith. Now, a little bit of backstory. I'm not exactly sure what the relationship was between Jaden, who is Will and Jada's son, and August Alsina, but there was some sort of friendship and or relationship between the two of them. And I'm assuming it's a friendship because I don't know them personally. So, you know, there was some sort of connection between August Alsina and Jaden because they are much closer in age. And that's how August Alsina was introduced to the family via Jaden, right? So long of it is short, he alluded to this relationship with Jada Pinket Smith. This relationship had already been speculated upon, but there had been no confirmation to this relationship. So August suffers with some sort of mental health issues, it appears. And based on the information that was released later on, it appears that he suffers with some mental health issues. And so people didn't really take his information. They kind of took it as, yeah, okay, you might be being a little petty, or you might be trying to, you know, let us in on something. But no one really, people kind of took it with a grain of salt because, you know, it's Jada Pinket Smith, and the Smiths are a mogul family in the industry, right? Then he sits down with Angela Yee and lets it rip. So he said that he did have a relationship with Jada Pinket Smith, and he said that he doesn't want his character to be put into question because he sat down and had a conversation with Will, and Will gave him permission. We can go back and forth about this, you know, permission idea. It doesn't really matter. So Angela, basically what happened was Angela asked him, who are you linked to romantically? Who is it that you know, we've never really seen you be linked to anyone romantically. There has been speculation that you have a relationship with Jada Pinket Smith, and, you know, what is that about, essentially, is what she asked. And he basically came out and said that he loved her, and he said that he was going to be truthful, and he had to live in his truth, essentially, because he didn't want to be he didn't want to hold it in anymore. It was not something that he could live with anymore, the burden that he could live with. And if you watch the video of his interview with Angela Yee, you can see the raw emotion and the passion that he has while he's talking about Jada Pinket Smith. Again, this is just one-sided. So we've only gotten at this point, we had only gotten the story from August Alsina. Well. A few days later, probably about a week, Jada Pinket Smith brought herself to the red table, and with her was husband Will Smith, and they sit down and address the issues. And as she muddles through the story, and I say she muddles through the story because it seems very unclear as to how she remembers certain details very specifically, but others she cannot remember. And her husband had to coax her into the full truth, per se. As she muddles through the story, she admits that she did actually have a romantic relationship with August Alsina while she and husband Will were on a break from their marriage. They were separated. So that's what's been filling up my timeline, Nicole. I'd like to hear what you think about this.
I think that you've said a lot. The story is a lot, and why do you even have to comment on it? A lot. So I'm just surprised that Will and Jada, even the powerhouse couple that they are, why they felt a need to even talk about it. Like, he's been alluding to this for a minute now. Like, this isn't really brand new because he's been alluding to it for a minute. But for some reason, they felt a need to speak on it this time. And maybe because of his interview with Angela Yee, you know, was out there. It did circulate a little bit last week, but then we were like, okay, well, moving on back to COVID. Then all of a sudden this week, she's like, okay, well, let me just go ahead and put it out there. Let me go ahead and address it. They've had so many things that they have not addressed in their marriage. I mean, there have been rumors in their marriage about a lot of things, right? Rumors that they believed in Scientology, rumors that they had an open marriage, rumors that, Will Smith was, gay or bisexual. Like, those rumors have been out there, and they decided not to address them, and they went on about their business. They continued to write TV shows and film and produce movies and do all kind of things. Their kids continue to move and shake. And so I think it's interesting that they decided to speak out on this. Like, before this came to be, like I was telling you, Janine, like, I don't even know if I knew who August Alsina was until this story started circulating. Yeah, call me old. I'm in my mid to late 30s. But maybe if you sing a song for me, Janine. What song does he sing?
Nicole, we're not going to put Janine on the spot like that.
Okay.
No, he does. He has a song that you would know. He has a collab that he did with DJ Khaled on DJ Khaled's album, and it was with Chris Brown, I believe. You would probably know him from that. I'll play it for you later.
Well, thank you, girl. I mean, now I know a little bit about who he is, because now I'm like really digging deep after her interview. Then, I go back and watch his interview because I didn't see his interview. Go back and watch his interview. And then I'm like, okay, wait, what's going on with him? And so now I've researched a lot about him. But before all this happened, it was like, I didn't know who I really didn't know who he was. So I do think it's strange that this now is getting a lot of attention. It almost makes me think it's like a media stunt almost. Like, are you trying to make him relevant? Are you getting a kickback from him getting a certain number of clicks, followers, likes? Are you trying to help him sell an upcoming album? Like, I just don't know what's the what. And then, we're not really making a lot of movies right now. We're not really doing a lot of, events right now. So is it that you're trying to make yourself more relevant and you're trying to make yourself stay in the media? I would argue that the Smiths really don't have to do that. Like, they have their pockets are long. Like, they don't really have to do something for the next couple of years and be fine. But some people like to stay relevant in the media. So I don't know why this was the focus. And maybe it's just as innocent as, hey, I have Red Talk Table now. I didn't have it before. I'm focusing on living in my truth. I can't not live in my truth this time because now I have an audience to be accountable for. So I'm hoping that is the angle, and that is why they decided to discuss this. But, when you get into the issue, so that's like my thoughts on the issue overall. Like, why was it even relevant? Correct. But when you get into the issue, there's a lot going on there, like, oh, you and Will took a break. Oh, okay. We knew you took a break. That was a rumor, right? But you didn't address that rumor. You kept on moving. So now we know it's confirmed that they took a break. What I want to know is, how long was the break? Because the affair was 2 years, right? That's a hell of a break.
And here's the thing. I'm more interested in the break itself and what caused the break. I would be
Correct.
more interested in what caused the break than I am in the fling that you had with a 27-year-old. I mean, it's cute. It sells magazines or gets clicks, whatever. I'm not sure that they addressed it for personal reasons. I think that they addressed it to clear the air because, let me be clear. August came out and he said that he wanted to clear his name. He wanted to make it clear that basically wasn't somehow disturbing the home of the Smiths. So I understand feeling the need to come out and in ways protect him to verify his credibility. To be very honest with you, I think that Jada wanted to bring herself to the red table because she still has feelings for August Alsina. In not addressing it, it kind of dampers his credibility because, again, who really thought that he was telling the truth? Very honestly, who thought that he was telling the truth when he said, yes, I had a relationship with Jada Pinket Smith and Will gave me permission somehow, right? So we kind of were like, oh, that's cute, but like, okay, boy, right? Not, and boy, by boy, I don't mean in a derogatory term. And by boy, I mean like he's young given the characters in the situation, right? So we kind of were just like, yeah, okay. And we just kind of took it with a grain of salt and kept it moving. The reason now why we even are giving it some sort of validity is because of Jada Pinkett Smith. And she would, like you said, they've never addressed anything before. She would have no reason to address this. She could have ignored this, and Will Smith could have ignored this like they've ignored the multitude of other rumors that have come about their relationship and kept it moving. But somehow that would have then hindered the credibility of August Alsina. And I think that she really still, I mean, based on even her telling the story, she basically was telling the story, trying to get out her truth while still protecting the image of August Alsina. So I honestly think that she still has feelings for this man.
So I didn't think about it like that, Janine. You know, when you break it down like that, maybe that is true. But, you know, Will and Jada on Red Table Talk have said that they don't have an open marriage, right? So if she ended up with him or going back to him, then they would have to explain, like, do you have an open marriage or y'all divorced? Like, what's the what, right? So they've said they don't have an open marriage. And they've also said that, you know, they are going to stay married. Remember, bad marriage for life. It's how they ended the show. So for her to have feelings for him, to me, wouldn't make any sense, right? Especially with your husband sitting there and you saying bad marriage for life, unless they have an open marriage. And they're just not saying that for some reason. So yeah, if you really want to go back to somebody and you want to protect them, yeah, you're not going to bash them. You are going to speak highly of them. But I just, you know, why say then that you don't have an open marriage? Like, why say that? And maybe they don't. And maybe she does still have feelings for him just in general, and she's going to stay married to Will. Who knows? But I just think it's interesting. The other thing that I thought was interesting about the story was that he was sick, right? So different sites have said different things. And, you know, he says he has a liver disease. Like, so back in September when he reported it to Double XL, he said that he had a liver disease and it's an autoimmune disease, right? So he has some type of autoimmune disease. He was hospitalized at one time because he couldn't walk, right? And so he's had these hospitalizations on and off throughout his lifetime from this autoimmune disease. I don't specifically know what type of autoimmune disease it is, but his mental state and that autoimmune disease are not the same thing. So it, to me, looks like there's different things going on. There's an autoimmune disease that makes him physically sick. And then he has already admitted to history of depression, which now makes him mentally sick. So then to me, you have somebody that you try to nurture, protect, help develop and grow. You were there, as she says, to help him. You wanted to help him and you ended up sleeping with him. I'm just, you know, confused. So is that taking advantage of somebody in a vulnerable state? So to me, it's very, if you know somebody's sick, why are you then going to allow yourself to step away from being a helping hand to now making him worse? Because somebody's depressed and they're going through stuff mentally, and then you then bring this emotional component into it, and then you pull away. Wouldn't that make him more depressed? Wouldn't that make his symptoms worse? How was that helpful? And then she said she hadn't talked to him since that time. So you were worried about him then, but you weren't worried about him after that. You decided, okay, I'm going to have this relationship with you. I want to help you. I know you're physically sick. I want to be there for you. Woo, woo, woo. And then after that, you're like, okay, well, I think I'm going to go back over here and get back with Will Smith, and I'm not going to talk to you ever again. What? Help it make sense to me, because it's not making any sense. To me, that's unusual and cruel. I think it's interesting because at the end of the Red Table Talk, what she said was, and I quote, she was able to do some deep healing. I listened to it again. I rewind and listened to it again, and I thought to myself, deep healing of who? Of you or him? Mm-hmm. Because I don't see how that's deep healing of anybody. I don't see how it's deep healing of him if you had this relationship with him and then you walked away and now you have this man still professing his love for you? You know, his heart is hurt for you. But you thought you did some deep healing. Oh. I think it was deep healing of herself taking a break from Will. That's the deep healing that went on there, not deep healing of August. But she didn't state who the deep healing was of.
The exact line that she said is, through this particular journey, I learned so much about myself and was able to really confront a lot of emotional immaturity, emotional insecurity, and I was really able to do really deep healing. So here's the thing. Let me go back to the statement that you made about helping August Alsina out. I believe that they did help him. I believe that the Smiths are the kind of people that throw money at situations and find resources. And it states in the articles that they found resources for him to help him get better, right? But I think that this is something that we should probably talk about in future Black Girl Conversations, because we often find ourselves in situations where we are helping someone else to the detriment of ourselves. She clearly was not in an emotional position or an emotional state or a mental state to help this young man at this time without it becoming an entanglement, right? So had she been, in a strong mental space and a strong headspace, she would have been a better resource to him, and it would not have, maybe it wouldn't have turned into this sexual relationship that it then turned into. We all know, all adults know, who have experienced any sort of sexual relationship, that sex complicates things. Point blank, period. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, no matter how simple a situation is, when you then include sex, things all of a sudden become unnecessarily complicated, right? We can all agree on that. Great. Now we move on. So that was the misstep, right? So now we're working with someone who has physical ailment and a mental ailment, August Alsina. We're working with someone else who has an emotional ailment that they're not necessarily aware of. And then we throw sex on top of this. It is now a mess, right? So yes, with all of the good intentions that they might have had initially with helping him out, it then became this entangled mess that we are now watching them live out loud in front of the entire world, right? So it's like, yeah, I think that the intentions probably were initially great. I don't think that she sought him out. I think that he really was brought to the family as, by Jaden to say like, okay, we need to help this guy. We feel bad. He's super talented. He's a talented kid, right? But then things got messy. And when things get messy, then you have to address them. And unfortunately for them, they have to address it to the public. And having watched both sides of the interview, there's no convincing me otherwise that August does not still have, he stated it. He still loves them. He said, crucify me. That was what he said. And honestly, the cover of his album is what appears to be an image of him with what looks like a crown of thorns. It really kind of exudes the feeling that I felt when I was watching the interview with him and Angela Yee. So there's no doubt in my mind that he still has feelings for Jada, right? And there's minimal doubt in my mind that Jada still has feelings for him. She said that, he's the one that cut off all contact. But then this is when it becomes a little bit muddy, because she says, well, at first she said, well, we haven't talked in years and we cut this relationship off years ago. But then when they were asking her when's the last time she talked to him, she was like, I don't know when. So now all of a sudden it's like, are we being really truthfully honest? Is it possible that you all still have connections with one another? Is it possible that you all run in the same circles and you might still have feelings even though you've decided to, stay in your bad marriage for life? I don't know. I don't know that you ever really lose feeling, especially if there's no dramatic end or whatever. It doesn't seem to be any clear cut. This is when we cut the relationship off and this is why. It was all kind of really muddy and unclear. It was all kind of, when did the Smiths decide to break up, and why did they decide to break up, and then why did they decide to get back together? All of those details are left out. But and again, I'm not a body language expert. I'm not about to sit here and psychoanalyze these people. But it appears that they still have some sort of genuine emotion towards one another. I think that's safe to say. What that emotion is, it appears to be some sort of romantic feeling to me, but they still have some sort of genuine emotion towards one another. And let's not leave Will out, because Will seems to have some sort of, well, I'm not even going to say seems. Will's emotions were written all over his face in the interview. He seemed to be very frustrated or bothered that they were even addressing the issue. He seemed to be going along with the plan, but he just was like, okay, if we're going to lay out the facts, let's lay them out. And if we remember at the end of the interview, he said, I still owe you. So the emotional healing isn't completely done. He still feels like he owes her.
I'll say this. You broke down a lot. I do think that, Jada, says that she's done some deep healing of herself. That does mean that she wasn't healed when she was trying to help him. And so she should have helped herself before she tried to help him. And you can help people without being attached to them at the hip or getting emotionally involved. So if you have contacts at certain hospitals that are doing certain studies, you can make phone calls without being over this man's house. Let's just throw that out there. You do not physically have to be around somebody to help them. I mean, COVID has shown us that we can remain socially distanced and still help one another. So did you have to be in that man's house to help him? No, you didn't. Did you have to form a relationship with that man? No, you didn't. He probably saw, Jada Pinket Smith. And she probably said, I'm single now. My husband's done with me. And he probably thought, this is fair game. I can go for this. And so he then allowed himself to be vulnerable. She was vulnerable and emotionally withdrawn from her marriage and had some, quote, deep healing that she still needed to go through. And so instead of her dealing with the loss and grieving her marriage, which then didn't end up ending, but dealing with that emotions from her marriage, she then decided to dive into this other situation, which, like you said, caused this entanglement. And so she should have dealt with her own crap first, right? So when you get on a plane, if the plane's going down, they tell you to put your own mask on first before you apply a mask to somebody else. Because if you can't breathe, then how are you going to help somebody else? So she should have helped herself there first. She didn't. And then she got herself in the situation. So I'm going to go back and still think that she took advantage of the situation because she didn't realize that she was in an emotional state and then used this opportunity to overcome the stuff she was dealing with in her marriage to the detriment of this other person's emotions, who's still very much in love with her, so much that he's willing to sacrifice it, sacrifice his career. Cause he's like, you know what? I'm going up against the Smiths. I'm gonna put it out there. I got to live in my truth. Whatever the repercussions are, I'm going to accept them, right? Go ahead, crucify me, but I'm going to say what I have to say. And so he's put in a situation where he now, in order to live in his truth, feels like he has to, be a sacrifice, which is really unfortunate. I think that because they've come out, and to your point, she must have some feelings for him because they've come out to validate him. I don't think that he's going to take, a big hit. I don't think that he is going to be crucified because now we know what he said was true. So now they validated him and saved his reputation, which is admirable of them, which is a good thing. But still, you shouldn't have even been in the situation in the first place. To your point about the ending, he did say, he's going to get her back. And I thought to myself, no, if you decide, player, to stay in this marriage, you have to forgive the offender, right? So if your husband cheats on you and you decide to forgive him and you decide to work through it and go to counseling, that doesn't mean that you can go and cheat on them. Like that's not how that works. If you're not over it and you're not willing to work through it, then you need to stay apart until you're able to actually get on the same page and work through it. So the fact that he even said that, like, I was sort of like pissed at him, but she ended it with like, oh no, I think that you've already done plenty of stuff, which means that he's done his trash too. So let's put your trash out there. So now you got Jada looking like the homewrecker when that probably wasn't even the reason they split in the first place. So they were already split when that happened. So some dirt went down before that.
And here's the thing. I think that they were trying to validate August Alsina's point of this actually did happen. However, not for nothing, really people have broken it down to, is it cheating or is it not, right? So my personal beliefs, I'm married, right? If my husband and I are separated, there's no separation means that we're still married in my mind, right? So if we're not about to sign divorce papers, divorce decree today, then I suggest that you remain faithful.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Because on the Red Table Talk, he said he was done with her. He wasn't planning on getting back with her. And my thing is, well, why didn't you go ahead and divorce her? You wanted to look good in public. You wanted to be on paper as together, and you wanted to keep up this act to the public that you guys were the Smiths, the power couple, and you don't, you can deal with anything and love each other through anything. So you didn't want the public to understand that in marriage, people struggle. And this is the first time they've broken down, like, marriage is hard. Marriage is hard. We're both married people. You can tell, like, sometimes I roll over and I look at my husband and I'm like, you know what? I just don't like you today. And that's okay. I'm sure there are plenty of times he doesn't like me. But if we're at the point where we're living in two separate houses and we've literally said we're not going to be together and we're getting a divorce and we are separated, then I don't know. I'm not about to sit around and wait for you to come back around and realize this big old blessing you got over here. I'm not going to do it. So if you tell me you don't want me, that's all you got to say. But I'm not going to go seek out anything. But it sounds like they were apart for quite some time. So I don't know. I don't really blame Jada for moving on in that respect. So I don't know. I have a slightly difference of opinion there when it comes to cheating or not cheating.
Well, here's the thing though, Nicole, they didn't get a divorce. And this is where it becomes complicated. And this is the gray area. So separation, they subsequently did not get a divorce. And now we're in a situation where this is a mess and an entangled mess because they thought that they were going to get a divorce. Nothing was finalized. And now they're back together. And this poor young man is caught in the middle of this situation, which is why I say, now granted, I agree with you 100%. If my husband were to tell me today or tomorrow, I'm done with you, I promise you that would be the same day phone call to the lawyer and papers would be served to him within the week. Okay. I'm not waiting 2 years, but that's just me because I have the same feeling like you. Hey, guess what? If you're not willing to sit over here and be grateful and thank God every day for me, then move on. There are plenty of fish in the sea. I would not have, well, you know what? You can't say what you would do until you're in the situation. But I would like to think that I would not be sitting waiting for 2 years for my marriage to somehow reignite and be carrying on a relationship with someone else. I would like to think that.
I think that when it comes to marriage and divorce, it can be very complicated because there's a lot of legal things to work through. And the deeper your pockets are, the more complicated it is. So we don't know why they took such a long break. We have no idea. And we don't know if, did they actually file papers and they were going through negotiation, or did they just, separate? We have no idea. I have a friend now that's pending a divorce. And they're battling back and forth. That divorce has been pending for a year, and it's because, one, COVID has slowed them down. And two, legally, there's a lot of things that you have to go into. You got to separate assets and determine what is actually an asset. And do you have the rights to these assets? And then if you have kids, that's a totally different ballgame. That further complicates the situation. And so I do know people that are living apart, but they are legally together for their kids, their benefits, and their livelihood, because it's cheaper to be married on paper and continue your other life over here, knowing that the wife has a different relationship over here and the husband has a different relationship over here. And they can be living in two separate houses, and it only becomes an issue when they're ready to get remarried again, right? And then legally they have to figure out how to separate assets and how to move on independently because now they brought somebody else into the situation. Now, mind you, I personally wouldn't do that. My husband is a minister. So for us, if we're married, we are married. Okay. And we're going to try our hardest to work through that. Because we personally have told ourselves we don't want to get a divorce. Now, if I end up getting divorced, hey, charge it to my Start to my heart. But either way, and I'm not saying I am, I love my husband, but either way, we have consciously tried to, try to act out these situations, like the what ifs. A lot of people don't do that in their marriages. Like, what if this happens? Would you stay? What if this happens? Would you stay? Are you open to counseling if something happened? I do think that people need to constantly go through counseling in their marriages. I mean, me and my husband went through a year of counseling before we got married, and went through a year of counseling the first year of our marriage, and we still do intermittent counseling. And I think that that's fine, in order to work through it. Do we love each other every day? Yes, we love each other. Are we all over each other and kissing each other every day? Well, no. I mean, love means you care for somebody, you care for their well-being, you care for their livelihood, you don't want to see any harm brought to them, and you mutually respect one another. I mean, obviously there's a ton of definitions of love, but for us, we love each other in that fashion. And it doesn't mean that you have to be sexually in love with your partner. It doesn't, because you have some situations where you have a partner that can't have sex anymore, right? So you don't have to be sexually connected to your partner to, love them or be in love with them. You don't have to be financially strong to stay in a marriage, but we know that communication, finances, and sex are the three biggest reasons that people get divorced. So I'm wondering, why did they proceed not to get divorced? Why did they wait so long? And for me, if you've said everything that you're going to do, especially if it's on paper already, I've told my husband, minister or no minister, I'm filing the papers. If we're fighting divorce and fighting assets, I wouldn't wait to move on. Mm-mm.
After you filed the papers?
I said what I said.
But you would file the papers first though, right?
No, I would definitely file the papers first. And in defense of Jada, we don't know if she did file the papers first, right?
Very true.
We don't know if her attorneys had their papers or not. We just know that they split, and he said that he was done with her. Now, while he was done with her, I don't know, because that's what he said. She didn't say she was done with him. So I'm wondering, like, okay, so did you do something else again, or did you just have like some aha moment that you just didn't want to be married? Because some men do that too. They have like, I just felt like I rolled out of bed today and I just didn't want to get married. I wonder if he had some issue like that. But he said he was done with her. He said he wasn't getting back with her.
And I think that some people just stay together because, like you said, it's more of a hassle to separate. Like, I mean, it would be a hassle for either one of us to get a divorce, and neither one of us has money as long as the Smiths, right? We don't have property as, intellectual property as much as the Smiths do. I mean, they have water and clothing lines. And I mean, you name it, and the Smiths have some sort of financial investment in those kinds of things, right? So splitting that empire would be a legal nightmare, I'm sure. So I'm sure that plays into their bad marriage for life, because at some point it's like, go through the media scrutiny, go through the hassle, go through the legal troubles, or do we just stay together and live our own lives separately? Who knows? Maybe it is easier for them.
It's cheaper to keep her.
It is, especially when you're Will Smith.
Right. Okay, let's talk through scenarios that are somewhat related to this. But I want your feedback on this. Like, let's dive into the scenario from a different perspective. So we've talked about the Smiths, right? Jada is a seasoned beauty. Let's say that. She's older, but I mean, Jada is gorgeous. I mean, she is a beautiful woman. Keeps herself together. She seems to be, because we haven't heard about her having any difficulty with health issues. So she seems to be relatively healthy, and she's in shape. She's fit. Let's say that you are a mother, right? Be it that you're August Alsina's mother, or let's just say you have a child in his mid-20s, and he wanted to date a woman that was in her late 40s, early 50s. What would you think, and what would you say about your adult child dating a much older woman from a mother's perspective? How would you feel?
Well, we can write this down as reason number 4,726, that Janine does not have children. But here's the thing. The first question that I would ask is, Well, is she older than me, or are we about the same age?
Let's say you're about the same age.
Ooh, okay. So the first question that I feel that you need to ask is, how did you all get together? What is the relationship like? Is it a healthy relationship? Or, are you putting in the same effort and energy and love and emotional support that she is? And is she providing the same love, energy, emotional support that you are? Are you all equally yoked? And by equally yoked, I don't mean religious purposes. I mean, are you all in a place where you can support and or complement one another in all aspects of your life, not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually? Do you all have common interests? What I would want to know, what is it that is going to make this is fortifying this relationship and is going to make this relationship last, right? Or is this even something that you were just doing for the time being? I think that, we have to be mindful that every relationship isn't meant to last forever, right? So I would ask a lot of questions, and I would try to avoid judgment because, who am I to judge? Love comes in all shapes, sizes, and age ranges, right? So I would try not to express what I would assume would be inherent displeasure of my son being with a much older woman, and try to support him in the relationship. But again, it would depend on how healthy that relationship is. And I think that, it's a real conversation to be had. Is this something that it's a fling and you're just going to do for the time being? And if that was the case, if my son told me, this is just something that I'd like to do for a time being, I just want to knock off this MILF really quickly, then I would say, make sure that you are protected, make sure that you don't get emotionally invested. And, I would think that it probably might not be a good idea, and I would probably advise him against it. But if he was set on continuing with the relationship, I would just give him advice on how to protect himself, both, physically and emotionally. Now, if he thought that this relationship was going to be long-term, we have to go into a much deeper conversation. Where is this going? How long do you think this relationship is going to last? Do you think the relationship is built on stable foundation? Because if it's not, then we need to have a conversation about that. What are you all forming this relationship on? And if the answers seem like it's, a solid relationship, then I can only be supportive of my son. But if who's to know? Relationships seem solid and stable all the time. And, our divorce rate is extremely high. So you just kind of support your child through whatever decisions that they choose to make. And you hope that whatever you've instilled in them will then help them make the best decision for themselves at the time.
So, my child is 1, right? And so when we talk about these scenarios, especially when we bring kids into the picture, I'm always thinking, what would I do if this was Harrison I was talking about? Right. And so from that perspective, if Harrison, and to your point, said, oh, this is just going to be a fling, this is just a MILF, right? And I would caution him away from dating her if this is just a fling. And I say that because older women that are experienced, we know what to do. Like, we know how to get psychologically into somebody's head. And I feel like, one, when you're older and you're dating somebody, most older women, if you're in a relationship, they're not trying to play. Like, they're trying to be serious. And I'm not saying all older women, but if you're an older woman and you are, in a serious relationship of 2 years, like, you're not trying to play. So if he's doing something like, oh, this is just a fling, I'm not going to marry her, I'm just here for the minute, I would caution him and say, okay, you can't play with people's emotions like that. You need to move on. Before it even got to the year mark, like, you're going back and forth with this woman, you need to move on. There's no reason for you to go and play with this older, experienced woman. And then I do find that people that get into these relationships tend to be very serious And you do tend to see them last a very long time. And some even end up married. And so then I would definitely have the conversation of, can she have kids? Is she willing to have kids if she can have them? Do you want kids, son? And if she doesn't want kids or can't have kids, are you okay with that? Like, would this be something that makes or breaks you? And I think that people have to have that candid conversation very early in their relationship about whether they want kids or not, what they want their lives to look like or not. Because it's very unrealistic for you to date somebody that's in their late 40s, early 50s, and you're 25 as a man and you want a child. Well, that's something that she may not be able to give you unless you're going some alternative routes. And so if she understands that and she's like, oh, I'm willing to try to have a kid, or I'm willing to have a surrogate, I'm willing to get donor eggs, or whatever you need to do when you're early 50s to have this man have a child, then okay. But it's a conversation that needs to be had up front. If you are in a serious relationship with somebody that's older, you need to think about those things. The other piece is you need to think about the family. You know, what is she doing? Or other kids involved? How do they feel about the relationship? How are they perceiving it? Are they accepting of it? And her parents, they're getting older. Is she planning to take care of her family when they're older? If she's in her 40s or 50s and her mom is in her 70s or 80s, eventually you're going to have to talk about home care, right? Or moving your parents in, or a nursing home. So what is that conversation needs to be had. You don't need to be married for 2 or 3 years. And then the first time you talk about what we're going to do with our parents is, hey, my mom is sick now. And so she's moving in. And, you know, my son is 28 and still, you know, out and about and wants to travel and stuff. And you are in your 50s and you're okay with being the care provider. So those conversations, and I'm not saying that somebody in their 20s would not be okay with somebody's parents moving in and taking care of them, but it is a different life when you have to take care of older people, especially when you're older. And in my 20s, I mean, I don't know if I would have had that conversation or even been thinking about that. Like, now that I'm in my mid to late 30s, of course I've had those conversations. Like, my grandparents are older. Some of them are deceased now. Some of them live by themselves because of that. You know, my mom's even getting older. So you have to have those conversations. My husband's family's getting older. Like, what are we going to do? So I think that has to be talked through.
I have another scenario, and this scenario came to me via my husband, as a matter of fact. So I would say that this is one of my husband's friends, but he made it very clear that this is not his friend. It's just a Facebook acquaintance. So I'm gonna go through the story, and I will not mention names or locations to protect the innocent. There's a young lady that my husband knows. She is in her 40s. So she's not super young, but she's in her 40s. And she met an older gentleman. And so this is kind of the opposite situation of August and Jada. She met an older gentleman, and he was married, right? And he was separated from his wife, had been separated for some years. And she verified they lived in separate houses. It was very clear that they were separated, right? And so she befriended him, and in the process of befriending him, he gave her some money to purchase a boat. And they were friends. The relationship wasn't romantic. At first, it was not romantic. They were friends for some years. And when they became romantic, she realized that she just wasn't interested in being with a man that was that much older than her. He was 22 specifically years older than her. So she's 47 and he is 69. So she realized that it wasn't her interest to be with someone that was that much older. So she separated from the relationship. They maintained their friendship, but they were a bit more distant. And we're talking, checking in maybe once every couple of weeks or once a month, just a phone call or a quick, message to say, hey, just making sure you're still there and everything's well, and moved on. And he went, to her knowledge, back to his wife. Fast forward a couple of years later, she flips properties for a living. So she is at one of her properties flipping the home, working outside, and up pulls a SUV with a woman and children in tow. And it is her friend's wife. And she is outside of her property calling her homewrecker, telling her that, you know, she needs to stop messing with her husband, so on and so forth, and continues on with the children in the back of the car, mind you, and continues on and basically tells this lady, you've wrecked my home. And she's confused. She's genuinely confused because she's been still communicating with this man, but it's no romantic relation. They're not in a situation where they've even seen each other in person within the last year. And it's not just because of COVID. She genuinely decided that she was moving on, right? And she is now in another relationship with someone else. And the wife is showing up at her place of work, for lack of better terms, and confronting her about messing with her husband. Well, the older man that's her friend, has decided to leave his wife now because he wanted to be with my husband's friend, in air quotes, right? So she now is presented with an issue because this man is leaving his wife for her. She does not want to be with this man, and she's now in a new relationship. And he has made decision to basically balls to the wall, decided to leave his wife and his family and his kids and move on because he is now in love with this young lady. This is the scenario. And it's complicated for a couple of reasons. It's complicated because, one, she doesn't want to be with him anymore. But she had a fling with this man while he was, quote unquote, separated and hadn't yet gotten a divorce in this gray area that we've been talking about. And now he's made the decision, or she kind of made a decision for him, to go back to his family. Well, when he went back to his family, he realized that wasn't what he wanted either. And now she's moved on, but he wants to be back in the relationship. So now, messing in this gray area of entanglement where things are not 100% done, we're not 100% through with each other, we have yet another mess. A wife, a husband, kids, and a new partner, all entangled in the mess because we dealt in this gray, muddy area where things weren't really clear, papers hadn't really been filed yet, and now everybody's trying to figure out how to clean it up.
Okay, so this scenario is interesting for a few reasons. One, sounds like she's 40-somethings, right?
Correct.
Two, you said he was 69. The wife, who must be younger,
she is,
comes in with children that are young enough to be in a car, right? So they're not toddlers because you wouldn't leave them in a car by themselves. So they're probably like, you know, somewhere along the lines of between 6 and 14 per se. So then you have small children. So one, the 69-year-old man, he likes younger women. We see that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You can be 69 and you can have you a 30-something woman. Hey, you like it. I love it. But what probably happened from the wife's perspective is she did not know about this affair. She did not know. She found out. And so she decided, I'm going over there. I am going over there. I'm going to confront this woman. How dare you, you little hussy, coming after my man, trying to break up a happy home. Don't you see these two kids back here in the van? Don't you see what home you're breaking up? And so, one, if my husband cheats on me and I find out, yeah, I'm going over there. I'm going over there. I want her to see me.
Really?
Girl, let me tell you, you're going to see me and you're going to know who I am and you're going to know that I know. So I'm either going to call you or I'm going over there. Absolutely. Now I might not go over there, especially not initially, but, I'm calling you. Oh, I'm letting you know.
Really?
Oh, I'm picking the phone up and calling.
So let me interject
absolutely.
for a second, Nicole. I am of the thought process I didn't make a vow with you. You are cheating with my husband. I did not walk down the aisle and tell before God and my family and tell them that I was going to be faithful to you. I made the vow to my husband. So I'm not addressing her. That's just my personal opinion.
I'm going to confront him too.
I'm going to
confront him too. Absolutely.
Head off.
But I am then going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call and I'm going to let her know that I know.
I want
and
everyone
to stay away from my husband. I'm going to tell her.
I wish everybody could see you, Nicole, because Nicole has picked up her phone and is waving her phone because she's so passionate about this. I mean, literally has picked up
because
phone.
There are women that are truly, they don't care if you're married or not. They are seeking out these men that appear to be stable because they want to be stable. And so they're after these men. And I'm not saying that what he did was right, but if you don't think I'm going to pick up the phone and let her know that I know, oh, you are mistaken. I'm going to let her know. And I'm going to let my husband know. Even if I'm done with him, I'm going to let him know, and I'm going to let her know that I know. So, yeah, it's not like I'm going to let her know and then I'm not going to say anything to him and I'm going to carry on as usual. Like some people try to I'm going to put on lingerie and I'm going to get my husband back and I'm going to seduce him to stay with me. You can't do that, right? You cannot make a man love you. But I am going to let her know that I know, and I am going to let her know that she played a part in this, because this works two ways. You have to have two people to cheat. So I am going to let her know that she played a part in it, but I'm also going to let my husband know that he's a dirty dog and he shouldn't have done that. And my husband knows me. I'm going to let him know, and I'm going to tell him probably to get out. And then I'm going to have to really take some time with God, and I'm going to have to really pray. And it's going to come down to, if my husband doesn't want me and he doesn't want to be with me, then we need to split, right? Because I'm not going to make anybody be somewhere that they don't want to be. But if he's remorseful and he wants to still be in the marriage, then I really have to take some time and have a come to Jesus moment with myself and go to counseling, pray about it, and really make some tough decisions to know what I am able to work through and what I will not work through. And I do think that marriages can work through almost anything. I'm a firm believer in that, if both people are willing to work. But like I say, he has to feel remorseful, and he has to admit his wrongs, and he has to want to work through it in order for the wife to even consider working through it. So in your situation, it sounds like her husband did not want to work through it. Her husband was done with her. And so she was lashing out probably after the fact. She probably lashed out on her husband already. She was lashing out at this woman and telling her what she did. Now, I don't agree with going to someone and physically attacking them, right? But I will go up there and be like, can I have a word with you? I'm Miss Plenty, actually Dr. Plenty. And you're the woman that's been sleeping with my husband. And I want you to know that he and I are no longer together. He has told me that he wants to be with you. But I do want you to know that I have these two kids over here. He has an obligation to them, emotionally and financially. And so if you are moving forward with this relationship, this is what you've signed up for. So don't act brand new when you have to pay my alimony and my child support, because this is what it is. So I wouldn't go to somebody and physically attack them or even curse them out, but I'm going to let them know, because I don't want them to think that, oh, we're doing something exotic and we're being, mysterious, and this is exciting because your wife doesn't know about it. No, I know. So if you choose to do it, that's fine. We're going to take some legal action and we're going to move on. But the other part is, she was fine with taking the big chunk of money to buy the boat, right? She got the boat. I didn't hear you say she gave it back. She's still talking to him as a friend because of COVID. So for him, he's probably thinking, oh, we're not together anymore because of COVID. I don't see her because of COVID, not because she doesn't want to talk to me. So this man is super confused right now. He's probably still giving this woman money. He's bought her all these things. And for some reason, she in her head thinks that they are not together anymore. So she's sleeping with somebody else over here on the side, or I guess they're both on the side, but she has another relationship over here, but she hasn't made it clear to him what her intentions are, because I'm sure that he wouldn't still be trying to communicate with her. I'm sure he still wouldn't be trying to leave his wife and tell his wife he's going to this woman. He would just leave his wife and go to some other woman. So I think that picture is interesting, because I think that this friend of a friend is, a little sketchy because she took too much money and she's trying to keep it friendly to not have to give the money back. And she's trying to keep her pockets replenished, on a ongoing basis. And so, maybe that's why I don't necessarily like that this friend of a friend has taken advantage. I mean, what would you do? Like if you were this man's wife, I mean, what would you think?
I think I have a certain amount of pride that I'm not going to chase a man or try to persuade him to be with me. I just feel like there's somehow a piece of my soul that will be ripped out if I have to try to convince my husband to be with me. That's just me personally. That's how I am. That's how I feel. My pride just won't let me continue to haggle for my relationship. I just can't do it. Now, if the back and forth and we let him back in and he left initially and so on and so forth, it just seems like too much drama. And in the way that my brain is set up, I can't go and forget the drama from the past of the time when you left before to be with this woman. So I just and know that how I am. And I know that every single time that I look at you and every single time I don't know where you are or what you're doing or you came home late or there's no explanation for A, B, and C, my mind is going to go back to that initial situation where you left to be with this particular woman. So our relationship is never going to be whole again because unless I'm going through years and years and years of therapy, which by that time the relationship would have disintegrated to pretty much nothing, it's just not going to work for me anymore. That's me personally. I also don't believe in confronting the other woman. I don't have any allegiance to her. I might not even know her. And the truth of the matter is, she owes me absolutely nothing. If my husband is able to get away with whatever it is, whatever relationship he had with her, and I either allowed it to happen because I didn't know, or I allowed it to happen because I just didn't care, or whatever the circumstances are, or even if I didn't allow it to happen, if it just was what happened, that's my burden to bear with my husband, I feel like. And the truth of the matter is, I don't have any kids. So there's, we have assets, but we split those up and we keep it moving. I'm just like, I want a clean cut. I'm all about a clean cut. If we're done, let's create closure and move on with our lives. I'm not going to go to, with kids in tow or not. If I had kids, with kids in tow or not, I'm not going to confront her. She can feel like she got away with whatever it is that she feel like she got away with. Because usually from what I've seen in my life, in the end, the person that's on the side or the person that is dealing with the person that is the cheater oftentimes ends up in a hurt, painful situation. Because guess what? The truth of the matter is the age-old saying, if he cheats with you, he's going to cheat on you. So good luck. I feel like your karma's going to come and I don't have to be involved.
Well, it doesn't even seem like she wants him. So she just using him.
Right, but she has money. The lady that accepted the money for the boat, she has money. He just gave her that money for, I guess, the balance of the boat. So she's not hurting for coins. But again, let me also say this. I'm not 100% sure that she doesn't do this in all of her relationships. I'm not 100% sure that she doesn't work for, the things that she needs, but get money from men or the men that she's in a relationship with for luxury splurges. It's happened before.
So if you're in a relationship with a man and he treats you and gives you gifts, I'm all for that, right? Because if I'm dating you, I am going to expect you to splurge on me a little bit. Absolutely. But if you're making this a habit and you're in relationships with much older men because you know that they're going to splurge on you more. And now you factor this into your daily budget. There's a problem here, right? So if you're doing stuff and turning tricks and it's because you're getting favors and you do this every relationship, well, that's called prostitution. I don't think that that's legal.
Really? You think it's prostitution?
I think that if you're doing something with because you know that you're going to get some favor behind it, like that is selling sex. Absolutely.
How is that any different than expecting a man to pay for dinner or dates because you know that you're getting some sort of sexual favor at the end? I don't think it's prostitution.
Okay, so I don't agree with that either, because if you pay for my dinner or you buy me some drinks, that does not equate to me having sex with you. Like,
I agree with that, but the intention for the man to pay is what? Generally.
What do you mean?
Generally. Why do you think that men would just pay? Be honest. Do you think that men are just out here paying for dates and dinner and splurging on women because they don't think that they're getting the yams at the end of the day?
Well, anybody that's gone on a date with me, they know that you get no yams, no cookies at the end of the day. Okay. That just did not happen. And, you're still expected to front the bill, at least initially. I think it's different when you're in a relationship. Yeah, there's a lot of give and take, but if you're trying to court me, yeah, you're going to pay the bill. And no, you shouldn't have the expectation of getting the cookies at the end of the night.
Well, maybe not immediately though, Nicole, but don't you think that that's the end game at some point?
Oh, but that's the end game to dating in general, right? That's the end game to dating. Even if you are trying to save yourself for marriage, you get married so that end game can be permanent cookies. Okay. So yes, in that respect, yes. But if you're doing this like this woman is, habitually doing things with people she knows she doesn't want to be in a committed relationship with, letting them grow feelings and saying that she's in a relationship with them, and then secretly pulling out of that relationship, so secretly that this man has left his wife for you and he doesn't understand that y'all are not in a relationship. Well, that's a problem. That means that you have not been clear about your expectations, that you have not been clear about your desires, and you confused this man, and now he's leaving his wife. And I'm not saying that he's leaving his wife because of her. Obviously, they must have some issues in their marriage, and he was going to leave anyway. The other woman never is the person that's forcing the man to leave. The man leaves when he's ready to leave. So I'm not saying that she's the reason, but at the end of the day, whether you would be accepting of him if he wasn't married. And you had to have known that he was married when you started sleeping with them.
That's that gray area separation. I'm telling you, I want the ink dry on your divorce papers before I start talking to you. And let me say this. As you said, Nicole, marriage is hard work. Should I separate and get a divorce? I'm not doing this again for this very reason. There's too much space and opportunity for things to muddy up the waters that you're not even aware of. I mean, just think about all of the people involved in each one of these scenarios. There are too many people whose lives get muddied up as casualties of bad decisions that two individuals made. And it just is too much. Whereas, when everything is casual, you can just walk away from the situation. And so should I not be married at any point? God forbid, I love my husband. Like, you said, we're not planning a divorce, but should we get separated in a divorce? I'm not doing this again, because I can always walk away prior to a marriage. I could just walk away and we'll be done, and I don't ever have to see you again. And then we're just done and we move on. If waters are muddied and somebody is not clear about what their expectations are, you'll get pretty clear when you don't hear from me, right? It's clean. But in this particular situation, it's just such a mess, because when people are done, they're not sure about whether they're done or not. Or should they try? Or do they even want to put in the work? I don't know. It's just such a mess. But here's the other side. I kind of feel her in the fact that if I'm dating somebody at this age, I mean, I'm not even in my 40s, right? But I'm in my late 30s. So if I'm dating someone at this age, I'm 100% dating you because you can provide me with what appears to me to be stability. Now, yes, are there a bunch of facades that people can put up to make you think that they're stable when they're not? Absolutely. But for me personally, I'm absolutely not going to be with someone that doesn't have as much as I have or more to lose, and that can't provide me with something that I can't provide myself. Is that not fair?
That's fair. I mean, different people, different people have different expectations. Like, my expectation is not that. So my thing is, I don't want to, my thing was education, right? So for me, I didn't want to be with somebody that did not have an education, because I have a huge education, and I wanted to be with somebody that actually
huge, like really, really big.
I wanted to be with somebody that actually valued education and actually was working towards something that they were interested in. And they did not despise the fact that I had so much education. And so for me, I initially wanted to date somebody that educationally may not be on the same level. I mean, my husband does have a whole bunch of degrees, but not necessarily on the same educational level, but liked education and valued it, because I knew that I wanted to have children that also valued education. And I think that it's easier to instill that in your children if you both are examples of what education looks like, and what education can do for you. So, for me, that is what I want to make sure, I married. Now, whether that be he had to make six figures or, he had to make a minimum amount, I didn't look at that. I feel like when you're going through things, in different stages of your career, you have ups and downs in terms of, how stable you are. So my husband has changed careers a couple of times, once since we've been married. So, and in the beginning, when we first started dating, I mean, he was making six figures. And then once we got married, he decided to go back to school, get another degree. And then he did not make as much. And now he has a job that he likes, and he makes a decent salary. So for me, the have as much as I have, I never, that was never something that was important to me, but education wise, it was very important. Now that I have been married and, I know a lot of people that are single, I think that the older people get, the more they change what they initially valued. Okay. And so I would encourage people to stay true to yourself, because if you don't, you're going to marry somebody just to marry them. And then all of a sudden you're going to find yourself not married anymore because you don't value the same things, right? So if you have somebody that is married and education wise, they're very well accomplished in their career, they're very well accomplished. And then they marry somebody because this person adores them and they love them and they're head over heels for them. And then after time, like that little warm, fuzzy feeling, it sort of starts to wear off. So then you're looking at this person, especially during a pandemic, and you're going to work and they're not going to work. You're trying to conserve because you realize, hey, I can get my salary cut, and they don't understand that they have to scale back. So that's when, those factors such as they have to have as much as me, or they have to have a certain education level as me. To me, that's why those things are important. And when you have people that have different standards and one is more dependent on the other, then you could have a situation where you may despise your wife or your husband. So, I don't know. That's difficult. It's a difficult situation to even think about, but that wasn't my scenario.
No. I understand. I'm saying that initially you have to set standards. Like, I think that we both agree that you have to set standards initially before you get into a relationship, especially in a marriage, right? I think that it's really important that you set standards. And I think that those standards need to be some concrete standards that can't come and go based on a fad or a trend or, what's going on. But I think that, I think that someone needs to have as much, if not more than me. I mean, I'm not willing to get into a relationship where, should we get a divorce? Because, let's just look at the statistics. It's a real possibility, no matter how invincible I'd like to think that I am. Should we get a divorce, is that person then going to take everything that I have? And that's why I'm thinking, it's important that this person has as much, if not more, than me, because I don't want to unknowingly put myself in a situation where you never know what the breakup is going to be like. You can be in love and, everything seemed perfect and they seem like your knight in shining armor, and anything can happen and they flip. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. And then now the person that you loved and you were ready to spend the rest of your life with until your last breath is ready to take your life, right? So you're like, I don't want you to have anything. I want to be, done with you. And you don't want to lose everything that you've worked so hard for because that person now just dislikes you. And they didn't have anything. They didn't come to the relationship with anything, right? Now, I understand that as you grow and your relationship evolves, things happen. And, relationships, it's not always exactly 50-50. Sometimes it's 80-20. Sometimes it's 90-10. You never know. That's what you sign up for when you sign up for marriage. However, you have to be cognizant of, Financial issues are real issues in marriage. They really are. And I'm not willing to get myself into a relationship, or I should say, was not willing to get myself into a relationship, especially not a marriage, where I felt like I was setting myself up for a future financial demise.
I understand that. I think that if you both have the same education level, it's very difficult to argue that you need alimony and you don't have the earning potential.
Correct.
So that's one regard. But when you have kids in that, it does complicate the situation, especially if that person isn't earning as much as you're earning and they are going to have custody of the kids. And that's when custody battles come into play, because then the person that has more money is going to want to take the kids, usually. And especially if the woman is involved and she wants a big chunk of alimony and child support, then of course the man is probably going to say, hey, well, I can financially provide for the kids, so I want the kids, so I won't have to pay you as much. And I think people pull their kids into situations in order to try to make the finances right, and then the kids end up suffering. So yes, Janine, I definitely agree with you to that point. But I make a lot more than my husband. And if we get divorced, I don't know what, I think hurt people hurt people. And so, yeah, if he's hurt, he could ask for alimony. He could become very vindictive. Not his personality, but he could, because hurt people want to hurt you. And you're right. But at the end of the day, I don't think that, for me, I'd be like, okay, whatever, I'm fine with paying you alimony to get out of this marriage, because I'm not going to stay somewhere where I'm being abused or where I'm not appreciated. That's just me. But yeah, I understand your point.
The one thing that we can all agree on is that you never really know. I mean, the one factor that we can never predict is what humans will do, right? So that's the wild card in all of these situations. You don't know what people's emotional state will be. You don't know what people are going to think, how people are going to change. You don't know any of this. So you have to make the best decisions for yourself based on the information that you have at the time, right? So in all of these situations, I think that, no one is wrong for making the decisions that they made. I think that people were making what they felt were the best decisions at the time, or they were making decisions without actually thinking them all the way through, right? So it's now an entangled mess because decisions were made, and decisions were made that then affected several people that had really nothing to do with it. They were just casualties of the relationship. So it kind of sucks.
So back to your point about you would never get married again if you got divorced.
Correct.
So I personally would get married again. So for me, I love love. And so if my husband didn't value me, I don't think I would be alone for the rest of my life. And I don't think I could casually date for the rest of my life. And I don't think that I could be like Oprah and Stedman and just be like, oh, we're together, but we're not together on paper. So we're not really trying to have any assets together. Like, I don't think I could do that, because I do think that, one, there's power in numbers. So when you're talking about investing and building something, it's much easier to do that with another person that you are legally bound to. And so for me, that it makes sense to get married. There are tax breaks in getting married, and I'm not saying that you should get married for the tax break, but there is something to be said about getting married and being collectively together. Now, I know some people would argue, well, you can invest in things, with your significant others, and you can, own property and own houses with a boyfriend. Yeah, you can, but then that's the same thing as a marriage, because once you break up, you still got to go through the legal ramifications of separating assets. So it's the same thing. So for me, I definitely, like, if somebody were to come along after my husband and I fell in love with them and they loved me, I would definitely be open to getting married again.
And I will probably have business with this current husband that I have for the rest of my life. So no, I'm not getting married again. I literally, and I don't know that we have to bleep out this name, but I would be Shawnee O'Neal. I would be like, look, I'm going to keep spending your money, and we're going to keep these businesses going, and we're going to make sure that this works with this current husband that I got over here. We're going to keep that going, right? And when I get a divorce, those businesses will still continue to go, and we will love each other as long as this business keeps loving us, right? Outside of that, I wouldn't see, I mean, unless for some sort of legal reasons I needed to get remarried again because there was some sort of other business that I'd like to be involved in, I just don't see intertangling my emotions or finances with anyone to this level again. And that's just how I feel right now. So God forbid if my husband and I get a divorce, ask me then. But right this moment, I feel like I don't want to go through that again. And it's not that it's been, traumatic. It just is a lot of work. And it's like, why? I mean, here's the other thing, Nicole. If we were to get a divorce, by the time that I meet someone and get to know them and we've unloaded all of our baggage and blah, 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 I'm 50. So now what? Why am I getting married at 50? Like,
people get married at 50 all the time.
And I understand. Me, Janine, why am I getting married at 50? I don't have any kids. I have the things that I need. I'm not in, financial straits. If we want to spend our end days together and we just want to have companionship, we can do that without the papers.
Well, I'm married to a minister, so I'm not about to sit and shack up with you and we're not married. You need to have me on paper. What I'm saying is, in the situation where you are divorced and you are moving on, you have your own lives and you do live in different houses and you decide that you want to spend your time with somebody else. If I were a woman and you were a man and we were together, I would be like, oh no, homeboy, you're not about to just shack up with me and have all these other business investments over here with the other ex-girl. I would have a big problem with that. And I'm not good enough for you to put me on paper? Oh no, I would have a big problem with that. Even if I was 70 years old, I would have a problem with that. So unless there's something else you're doing over here, with me, I would have a problem with that. Like, as the other person that is not in that divorce relationship, I would have a problem. So for me, I would definitely get remarried and I would make sure my business ventures stayed business ventures and we can continue to be business partners. But that doesn't mean that I can't get married again and start other business ventures with that person and another family with that person and grow and love that person. It doesn't negate the relationship I have with my ex or the businesses that I have with my ex, but it's still, for me, I'm not about to sit and shack up with you for all these years. I don't care. We ain't sleeping together for all them years and you ain't gonna marry.
Well, see,
we need to be married.
I don't know that I would just want to invest that kind of time or emotional energy into it again. I feel like the amount of time that it would take to unload the baggage from this relationship to get into another relationship, that's just too much energy and effort when I could just move on with something else. Like, I don't know, maybe. But then again, I'm also not one to enjoy going long periods of time without having sex. So I might change my tune when I realize that sex isn't readily available to me. So
you change your mind. You change your mind.
I mean, honestly, that would be, to be very honest with you, up until you just made mention of that, like, oh, I'm not checking up with you. I really, in my mind, thought like, it would never dawn on me to get married again, right? Like, it just would not be a desire. But then when you said like, oh yeah, you're checking up, I thought to myself like, yeah, I would want to have sex again, so I might just do that again.
And not saying everybody has their own beliefs. Everybody has their own religious beliefs. Some people may not be religious at all. So this is from our perspective. So we're not trying to force our perspectives on you, but everybody has their own beliefs there. So I'm not saying that, shame on you if you're not married and you're shacking up. That is not what we are saying. But from my perspective, I personally would not be doing any long time shacking up with somebody I knew did not want to get remarried. And that is a conversation. If you are married, if you are dating somebody that has been divorced, you do need to ask them, do you ever see yourself getting married again? And if you're not on the same page, if you're a woman and you have never been married and you know you want to get married and you're dating somebody who's been divorced, you may want to make sure you know where y'all are going. Because if he doesn't want to get remarried again, or she, then, and you do, then you have a big issue on your hands.
Facts. I think that's a topic of conversation for another week as well. Like, I really think that we should talk about that, because I know a lot of people who are in relationships with people who have previously been divorced and are sitting waiting for them to ask them or agree to marriage when the person is very clear, I have no interest in marriage or relationship. I've already had a family. That's not what I'm looking for at this point. So I think that, we could talk about this all day. And I think that maybe let's make a note.
I'm noting it right now.
Ask our listeners. You guys, the people who are listening, we love you all. We want you to join the conversation. So if you have a topic of conversation, send it in to us.
Our email is that'sdeepbwc@gmail.com. Okay, let's talk about what we've learned new this week. Janine, what have you learned new this week?
So what I learned is actually fun and relates to our story today. According to Variety, it says that Jada Smith in her Red Table Talk, where she brought herself to the Red Table, broke the viewing records for Facebook Watch, which she had more than 12 million views in less than 24 hours. So the previous record. So first of all, Nicole, I didn't really know that there was anything on Facebook Watch other than the Red Table Talk. Like, I haven't watched any other programming. So shout out to Jada for beating herself, for setting her own record and beating it. But the previous record was held by the Red Table Talk episode that she had with Jordan Woods, where she talked about her relationship with Khloe Kardashian's child's father, Tristan Thompson. So shout out to Jada for breaking records on Facebook, which is huge, because to have 12 million people watch anything is an accomplishment. So shout outs to Jada.
Yeah, I remember that. And I thought it was a really good episode of Red Table Talk when she had her on there. And then she also had some of the victims of, the whole R. Kelly scandal, which is why when I started, really watching her episodes. So she has some good content on there. So yes, I like that, what you've learned. What I've learned this week is that most online dating services have either been discounted or have been free during this pandemic. And there are still some, online services that will give you 3 months free. So look out for that. I know that there's a lot of services like eHarmony and Match will give you the first couple of months discounted, but now they're standard 3 months. So if you're looking for love, hey, there's online platforms that you can get at reduced prices right now.
Just make sure that you're in a situation where you can accept love.
All right. So your inspiration for the week, remember that you are amazing. If you are waiting for love, know that it will come. Be still and trust God. Until we meet again,
pray, work, slay,
and show off your melanated excellence.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, That's Deep. Black Women Conversations is produced and hosted by Nicole Lee Plenty and Janine Brunson Johnson. Executive producer Ken Johnson. Find Oh, That's Deep Black Women Conversations on Facebook and IG at Oh, That's Deep BWC. Oh, That's Deep Black Women Conversations is a 5 Times Media production.